the next governor will likely have to look at implementing the Kerwan education funding, possibly $2 billion worth of new spending for education. Rarely does Maryland have more money than it needs to fund all of its priorities. In terms of cuts or program curtailment or raising taxes, how do you go about funding and implementing the Kerwan recommendations?
Well, based on what everybody's saying, everybody want to fully fund schools. I don't see that being possible because right now Larry Hogan's spending a lot of money and we don't know what's going to be in the budget. I think we have to take time and be a little wise with spending because we're spending, and every time that we take money from one place, you know, the people of Maryland, they end up being the ones who have to put the money back because you're going to have to raise taxes to get the money, put the money back to where you got it from. So it's time that we become a little wiser with spending and take time to see what, I guess, where this money's coming from because you're not going to fully fund schools. It's not going to happen.
In the Obama administration, Vice President Biden would often say, if you want to know your priorities, look at your budget. Maryland has a backwards 1950s budget in many respects. We spend about as much on prisons and policing as we do on higher education. We spend twice as much on roads as we do on public transit. We spend much less on early childhood education than neighboring states. It's why I'm going to make sure that I focus on investing in solutions instead of paying for problems. It's why we're going to invest in universal pre-K, knowing it's one of the smartest investments we can make. It's why we're going to provide free community college, knowing it's how we support our economy and education.
Mr. Jaffe.
Money is not the answer, ladies and gentlemen. How about making classroom teachers real heroes that they deserve to be paid for? How about having, let's say, more role models, better parenting? And when that can't take place, that's why I came up with the tutor mentor program. Money's not the answer. Good teaching is the answer with love.
Thank you, Mr. Jaffe. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I think I learned from Pete Rawlins, the late Pete Rawlins, a budget is your priority. And so therefore, what I've set out is education, we're going to fully fund it. But it does mean, just like I do in Prince George's County, we're going to have to make tough choices about everything else because you can't fund everything. Mr. Jones is right. If education is our priority, then we're going to have to make some cuts at the other places. But that's what we need to do to make sure we have first-rate schools so we can do the things that people are talking about.
Sure.
As a head of large organizations, both public and private, I've developed and met many budgets. What you have to have is a priority. You never have enough money to fund everything, but education is the highest priority, and we will fund that. As to cost cutting, when I was chair of the university system, those 4 years alone, we cut more than $200 million in cost out of the system. We can do the same with the public school K through 12 system.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Mr. Ross.
You want to spend less money on police and criminal justice? Invest in education. You want to spend less on unemployment? Invest in education. You want to spend less on homelessness? Invest in education. You pay now or you pay later. It's funny, people always obsess about the cost of education, but we don't know how much we're spending per person to incarcerate people, or most people don't. If we invest early and we take a long-term view on investing in education, then we will spend less on all of those other problems.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. Gillis.
My mom sued Western High School girls. My mom sued Western High School for girls when she was 12, so she could desegregate it in 1955 when she was 15. We've known at least since then that until we fully fund our schools, no other theory of education actually works right. And that's why the teachers trust me to make sure that we will finally fully fund our budget. I've been a CEO of a complex organization or a partner in a small business since I was 26 years old. I've never met a budget I couldn't optimize by 5%.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis.
And that's what we have to do here.
Ms. Irvin.
Maryland is one of the richest states in America, and we fund our school system on the back of gambling money, which I think is wrong, and I also think it's a reverse tax on poor people. However, if you look at the 24 counties across the state of Maryland, you will see that our per pupil spending is pretty even. And here in Baltimore City, children are $16,000 plus per pupil. That's a lot of money. So something is wrong when you spend that kind of money on on your
Thanks, Ms. Irvin.
pupils, and they're still not succeeding. Money is not the only answer.
Senator Madaleno.
I'm the one candidate up here who is a member of the Kerwan Commission. I'm quite familiar with the recommendations and what they're going to cost. They're going to be phased in over several years, as when we phased in the Thornton Commission recommendations. We have the resources to do this. It's a question of priorities. It's a question of where you want to put it. Governor Hogan wants to put it back into the pockets of the wealthiest, most fortunate Marylanders because that's what Republicans do. Democrats, like myself, put money into improving our public schools, and that's what you're going to get with the Madaleno-Jenkins administration.
Thank you, Senator Madaleno. Mr. Jones, you have a rebuttal on this issue.
Yes. I listened to Senator Madaleno, but my question is, how do you do that? The taxpayers are going to be the ones who are going to pay for this. So are you willing to raise taxes to get money to fully fund the school? That's my question.
You want me to answer that question since
Sure.
you called me out on it?
Your name was mentioned.
Fortunately, we are sitting on a surplus because we stopped the governor from doing a tax cut this year to partner with the crazy tax cuts that the Republicans did on Capitol Hill. So we have, depending upon the estimate, we have $500 million in surplus to put towards it. You move forward with legalizing and taxing marijuana, you get some of the other growth that is occurring in our economy, and you will have the money to put into education if you have a governor who's willing to make those hard choices.
Thank you, Senator. Any other rebuttals on this issue? Mr. Jealous, this is your final rebuttal.
I know. Now, I'm proud to be one of 24 people in this country that President Obama appointed to his Commission on Equity and Excellence in Education. And it's true, we're going to need more resources. And that's why, as governor, I will make sure that we legalize and tax cannabis for adult use. We will close corporate tax loopholes. We know Walmart pays their fair share of taxes in Texas, but we don't know that they do here. In fact, we're pretty sure that they don't. This is fundamentally about getting our priorities straight. And when I'm governor, I will make sure
Thank you, Mr.
that when it comes to education, we budget it first.
If there are no further rebuttals on this issue, we will now move to the next question.